For those of you that are, watching the replay, because there's nobody in right now, I accidentally put the in-stream link, and my husband came in, and I seen him pop into the stream, and I was like, "What the heck are you doing here?" It's so funny. Alright, well, Jeff, I wanna thank you so much for coming and hanging out on the Scoop podcast and also hanging out in, Croupen's Content Lab.
Glad to be here. I
Yeah.
didn't realize you were done with your sentence there. Yeah, it's an honor. I know we you invited me to do it like over a year ago, and then I never heard anything else. I thought maybe you'd grown so big and popular now that, you're out of my league.
No,
And
that's not the
so
case. I'm actually just, I'm really, I'm just trying to get things figured out over here. There's a lot of moving parts. I'm trying new things, and my communication. I really dropped the ball when with following up and stuff like that. So I'm very appreciative that you followed up with me.
well, as you know, I follow you on social media. You've been inspiring me with your workouts. I was telling someone today that I think there's a middle ground between being out of shape and being in shape, and it's called being active. And that's where I'm at. I play pickleball for an hour and a half to 2 hours almost every day. And so it would not be fair to say that I'm inactive. But what I really need to do, I'm watching you getting in the gym, lifting weights, picking up heavy things and putting them down. That's what I got to get back into. I haven't done that for years. And so you're inspiring me not just in your business poop scooping and leading people and I love seeing how transparent you are with your fans and followers and kind of giving them a real life view of you and your family and what you're up to and that you talk sometimes about your faith, which I think is important too. And so honored to be a part of whatever you're doing and to support you in any way I can.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I remember when I had seen you at Launcherpreneur Academy when Brian was putting on his LAL, and I mean, you share a lot as well. And I know you were talking about like not weight loss, but just moving and grooving. And I've seen pictures of you prior when you were heavier, and then you've lost some weight, and just moving your body is really it really is important. I think the older that we get, we realize that we need to take better care of ourselves. And I always had an unrealistic expectation because the magazines are always like, get fit in 6 weeks, lose belly fat. And I've been working out consistently since I want to say September. And it's like now I'm just finally starting to see some like little baby muscles in my arms. And I'm like, okay, here we go, finally, and I do think that that'll translate into business, into faith, and growing that, we might not see results right away, but if we keep being consistent and we keep pushing through, eventually we'll start to have some progress.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And my own personal journey when it comes to wellness is it was a few years ago that I was like 250 pounds. And I'm like, gosh darn it, that's an eighth of a ton. That's how they weigh pickup trucks, for goodness sakes. And so we started doing low carbs, super strict, more exercise, and I lost like 55 pounds in about 6 months and felt good. But I travel a lot and running from place to place in the airports, eat a lot of restaurants. I like fell off the wagon, and I've asked some of my friends who are in recovery from drugs and alcohol. I'm like, is that a improper I mean, I don't want to belittle what they're doing because falling off the wagon with heroin is going to get you in probably more trouble than going back to McDonald's when you know you shouldn't. And they go, no, it's the same psychological thing that I'll like, eat something and then it'll just derail me. And it drives me crazy because I should be smart enough not to let this happen. But I'm like, well, since I'm off my diet, what I haven't had in a year is a milkshake. And you know what's good after a milkshake? Another milkshake. And so I put some more weight back on, and now I'm getting it back down. I'm fascinated, and I really I'm 55 years old. I've been a professional speaker and trainer now for 30 years. I understand the mentality of motivation and discipline and consistency. Like I get it, and even after all these years, I struggle with it, and then I feel guilty about it. I'll be up on stage and I'm like, oh yeah, telling people how to reach their goals and chase their dreams, and I'm the fat guy. And you think everyone's judging you, and maybe some of them are, but you really shouldn't care. And oh, it's a whole thing. But I do agree. What I've learned in my life is that I don't know if an equilibrium is the right term, but when you're doing things mentally and physically and spiritually, when you got it all grooving, one part helps the other. And it's like when a wheel falls off on one of those, for me at least, I found that I'm in trouble in all of them. That when I'm eating right makes me want to exercise, and when I'm exercising makes me want to eat right. But if I fall off of one of those, then I'm like, oh, and
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yesterday, I don't know what was going on yesterday. I had a really good workout. I was feeling good, looking good, all the things, whatever. Last night, I was just standing in the kitchen and I was just had a hankering for like some ice cream. And I was like, I just want some ice cream. And I almost door dashed a pint of ice cream, but I drove and I got like a dairy-free, gluten-free ice cream, and in theory, it would be fine because it fits within my diet. I got 3 different pints and I had more than I should have of each. Last night, I was miserable. I had the sweats. My husband actually had to open up the window for me because I was so hot, which then led to I woke up late. My eyes were puffy. I have barely done anything productive today. So, it all kinda it does. It all starts to, like, fall off, and but you have to recognize and be like, "Nope, we're gonna course correct." And I think just in business in general, if we don't how do I wanna say this? Sometimes we don't know what's going on, and we're trying to figure it out, and we need to, like, stop, maybe reach out to somebody. Oh, I lost you.
no, that's me. I'm having some trouble with my camera. It's got like a screensaver that comes on. I don't know why it's doing that. So is it back on?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
My thought wasn't very good anyways, but I do have a question. What kind of camera are you using for your streaming?
So I'm not the best example for that. I never did any streaming or zooming or anything until just a few years ago when COVID hit. And I do speaking and training for a living, and all of my events got canceled. That was a fun season. When my income went to zero, that was unexpected development. And so this is it's a Sony camcorder that I'm hooked up to here through my laptop, and
Are you a I are you an
it's
iPhone user
it's
by any
probably
chance?
about 10 years old. Yeah.
Okay, well, if you want off camera, I can tell you because I'm recording from my iPhone. I use my iPhone for all my recording. Everything that you see, it's just the iPhone.
Yeah, we'll connect on that. When I'm doing, when I make YouTube videos and stuff, I use my iPhone for that. But I've been having trouble connecting my iPhone to my Shure microphone, and but I don't do it as much as you do. I don't do a regular podcast. I do occasional YouTube videos. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying there, that that it's the mentality of it. I'm convinced the mindset behind everything really makes a difference, and that it's okay to draw a line. It's okay to have too much ice cream last night. When you get in trouble is when you start a habit of ice cream every night now. But to draw a line and start over, and so that's kind of where I'm at in my life, is trying to find some good balance. I was reading probably different religious beliefs and spiritual backgrounds listening to your podcast. Personally, I'm a Christian, and I was reading in the book of Luke the other day, and there's all these stories about baby Jesus, and then nothing until he's an adult, except for there's this one little passage in Luke, I think Luke 2 or Luke 3, that described Jesus growing up, and it said he grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men. And I'm reading that and I'm like, okay, so wisdom, he grew physically, mentally, and he grew in his ability to get along with people and his relationship with God. And I'm like, that's it. Spiritual, mental, physical, with people, and so having those balances are important, I think. And so
It is, and you're good with people, you're good with communicating with people, and I was a little intimidated to even have you on the podcast because to me, you're a big dog, and I'm like, "Oh, I don't know if I can interview well," but I'm glad that you're on, and I've read your book several times, Say It Like It Matters, When It Matters. In there there's a part there's a lot of good parts, but the one that I still kinda get hung up on is where you talk about, like, how you became a really good salesperson because you weren't selling the item that you were selling. You were able to construct, like, a story around it and what you were actually selling, and I've been, like, thinking on that ever since I read your book, and I think a lot of us scoopers or people that listen to this podcast, we're scoopers or we're in the home service industry and it's a commodity, right? It's a lot of times it's lower ticket sales, but it's high volume. And so I'm wondering if we can kind of go into that a little bit and
Yeah.
why it's important to like spend time to learn your customer, learn what you're actually selling, like what your customer actually wants, and then how to build a marketing plan around that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And for your listeners who don't know who I am, yeah, by the way, we should probably go there. But my name is Jeff Joyner. I am a professional speaker and trainer based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. My weird career background is got a degree in, got a bachelor's degree in communication when I was young, right out of high school. And speech communication. Was on a speech team when I was in college, which led to a scholarship to graduate school. Got a master's degree in communication from Miami University in Ohio. And then they offered me a faculty position right after that. So I was 22-year-old college professor, and much to the surprise of every teacher I ever had. Did that for 5 years and then went to work in corporate sales for the Campbell Soup Company. And I spent 10 years working in sales for a Fortune 500 company. Really, really struggled my first 4 years. Was the worst salesperson they had. Like literally, they used to rank us and send out an email, and I was at the bottom. And I took basically a year of my life and started studying selling. I read every book you could find on the subject, probably 60 or 70 books, took out little nuggets out of each one and kind of reinvented how I go about selling products and services. That next year, I was the top Campbell soup salesperson in the world. You can't see them in the background, but I got my little trophies up here. The merit award for excellence they give to their top salesperson, and I won it again the next year and the next year. And then when I do selling training for companies today, I was just in Minnesota last week, big sales company, and I said, "Yeah, I learned some things that helped me make 5 times more sales with one third the hours at work." And they're all sitting there like, I can tell they don't really believe me. But neither can they afford to ignore this information. And but that's kind of my story. And I really, um, yeah, learned some things hopefully that may be of use to your listeners. Because I would argue with your premise when you say what you're doing is a commodity. Um, I think maybe it is and maybe it isn't. It depends what you're selling. If you what you're, I think there's a difference between what you're doing and what you're selling,
Mm. Yeah, let's
right?
unpack that.
What you're doing is scooping poop, right? And
Yeah.
that is anyone could do that. We could train monkeys to do that. It's not difficult, right? And so if that's all you are selling is poop scooping, well, 6-year-olds could do that, right? And so I don't think you should be selling poop scooping at all. I think you're crazy if you do that. I think because you gotta, I talk to my kids are young adults now, and I have one teenager left, and then two in their 20s, and I talk to them about how income works in a free enterprise economy. And I don't know if you've heard me tell the story, but my oldest daughter Amanda was a champion in karate. She won the national championship in karate at the USA, karate nationals when she was like 13 years old, and then she repeated gold medal when she was 14. Had a trial with the U.S. Olympic Committee, one of the best kids in the world. And I used to go around and tell her story everywhere. And I was at a company in Indianapolis, and I told her story, and the president comes up and he goes, "Hey, we're having our shareholders meeting next week. Would your daughter be willing to speak, at our conference?" And I go, "I don't know. I mean, she's a 14-year-old girl. I'll ask her." So I say, "Hey, Amanda, would you be willing to put together like a 10-minute speech about what you learned about karate and speak?" And she's like, "I'd rather not." And I said, "I'll split my speaking fee with you if you do it." And she goes, "Well, how much is it?" And I think it was like 8,000 bucks. And she goes, "I can make $4,000, but I'll do it." And so we did it together, showed a little video of her, and then she rocked him up there. She was talking about, these are talking to mostly professional salespeople, and like, you guys are way too concerned about your competitors. If you're good enough, you don't have competitors, And anyway, we're driving home, and she said, I can't believe I just made $4,000 in one night. So she goes, it would take me all year to make that money babysitting. And I said, yeah, do you know why? I said, because when you babysit, you only benefit one family at a time. And tonight you benefited 1,000 families. And so your income in this country, I'm convinced, is determined generally how many people benefit from what you do or how few, and how many people can do what you can do or how few. Does that make sense? So if your only skill is flipping burgers, you're never going to make a lot of money because most people can do that and it only benefits a few people at a time. And so if I was in your line of work, right, scooping poop is what we do, but what do we sell is something very different than that, right? We're that in my book I talk about learning the difference between people's wants and needs. Right, that was one of the lessons I learned that really helped me. Was I read a line in a book that said, "People buy what they need to get what they want."
Mm.
And I was like, people buy what they need to get what they want. So, someone who needs life insurance, do they want life insurance? No. But what do they need? What do they want? Well, they want peace of mind for their family. So, someone who needs a pooper scooper, what do they really want? Some of them just want a clean yard with no poop in it, and it's that simple. My my screen keeps doing that, it's driving me crazy. Some of them, most of them, I'm assuming, what they want is not to have to do it themselves, right? They want, but there's other things that they want too. They want to work with people they trust. They're letting people onto their property. I wouldn't let just anybody come onto my property to be on my property when I'm not home. And I think you're not selling a product, you're selling a service. I think what people want is to do business with good people that they know and they trust. And that's what I would be selling if I were in your shoes, is not poop scooping service. It's the opportunity to be in business and support the business of Erica. We're partners. I'm part of your family almost. I don't know if I'm making sense. I'll give you an example. I get my hair cut about every 3 weeks, and for years I went to Sports Clips. I don't know if they have those where you guys live, and it's haircuts for men. You watch sports, you get your hair cut, they give you a shampoo, and I would always go in there and like, all right, do you have a specific person or first available? I'm like, first available. Well, one time this girl Danielle cut my hair, and as she's cutting my hair, she's like, "Tell me about your family." "Oh, my wife Kathy and I have been married for, blah blah. We got 3 kids." "Oh, what do your kids do?" "Oh my God, my son rides roller coasters and my dad." Blah. And she really seemed to take an interest in me and my family. So next time I went back, they said, "First available," and I said, "Danielle, is she here?" "Yeah." So she cut my hair again, and she remembered my kids' names, remembered my wife's name, remember what I did. We had a great conversation. Found out that she's a single mom with 4 kids. Wow. So when it came time to give her a tip, I gave her the biggest tip I ever gave somebody who cut my hair. Next time, 3 weeks later, I needed a haircut. And instead of showing up and saying, "Is Danielle working here?" I called and said, "Can you tell me when Danielle's going to be there? Because that's when I'm getting my haircut." Right. You see where the story's going. And you have vendors like this in your life,
Yeah.
right? Well, she cut my hair at Sports Clips for like 10 years. And then she got in a fight with the manager there because she had all the customers were wanting her. They put a board up on the wall that said the names of everyone waiting, the name of the customer and who they're waiting for. And it was like Danielle, 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 Danielle. People were sitting there waiting an hour for Danielle when there's other women standing there doing their nails. And so she left there and I'm like, "Danielle, where are you going?" She goes, I think I'm going to take a break." And I said, can I, can I come to your house? For 2 years, I drove 30 minutes one way for this woman to cut my hair in her garage and paid her cash. And because she made me feel like I was her favorite customer. Now, she's clearly making a lot of other dudes feel that same way. Because when I'd be leaving, somebody else would be coming. Now she's at another, but she still cuts my hair. And now she cuts my son's hair. And I've recommended about 100 of my friends to go for her to cut their hair too. So it's not apples to apples to your business, but you could argue that a haircut is a commodity.
Yeah.
But getting your haircut by Danielle, right, is a special thing, and she makes it special. And so that's what I think. I think if I were in your shoes or any pooper scooper shoes, how do you differentiate yourself? And you've heard me speak to the entrepreneur people. I tell them the same thing. If you I was on Brian Fullerton's Facebook thing that he does. I forgot what he calls that. Not LinkedIn, linked
It's
up, something or other.
it's, Link. It's just called Link.
Yeah, it's called Link.
Yeah.
And I asked, they had all these people on there, and I said, if your lawnmower blades got twice as sharp, would you double your profits this year? And they said, no. What if you became twice as skilled at making straight lines in people's yards with your lawnmower? Would your sales and profits double? No. What if you got twice as good with people, with connecting with them, with thanking them for their business, with finding out, is there anything special that you need when we're here? Oh, well, you know what? We don't like it when you put it here. Would you put it over there? There's little things that people want. One of my chapters in my book that you've read is, getting rid of your satisfied customers. And I don't know if that part made sense to you. To me, this stuff is all related, but um, I used to think, like most people, that customer satisfaction was a continuum with two ends, and one of them was satisfied and the other one was dissatisfied.
Mhm.
And it dawned on me one day that's not true at all, right? It's more like this, satisfied customers are, but dissatisfied customers, what are dissatisfied? If you got a customer who's dissatisfied with your service, what do they become real quick?
A non-customer or a person that is sending me messages.
Yeah.
And then
I
and
mean,
then
it's
and then a
form.
satisfied customer is sometimes are the ones that are just like, "The service is fine. There's some issues, but I don't have the time to complain, and nor do I wanna find another customer." They're
Yeah.
just
Boy,
kinda
yeah.
neutral.
You have some dissatisfied ones that are hanging around and they're easily picked off by other people.
Yeah.
I saw a study by the US Department of Consumer Affairs. I'll give you a fill in the blank trivia question. And maybe if you got some people that are watching this, can they give you feedback or they're just watching?
No, they can. There's actually a chat. Can you see the chat by any chance?
I see that there's a private chat, but I don't see any comments in it. Are people chatting away?
Well, there's one.
Oh,
May
okay. Comments. I just tipped on it.
Yeah.
Brian Race is in here.
Yeah, he's in the house.
I know Brian. Hey, Brian.
Yeah, Brian, we were chit-chatting earlier. He was helping me out because I was having some audio issues when, I had an in-guest person, and the audio wasn't the best, but we're gonna get that figured out.
Friend of mine is a former NFL guy, and he wrote a book. And he said, "Yeah, I'm recording the audio book right now." I go, "Oh, you should have talked to me. I got the best guy that would have worked with you on it, probably giving you a better deal." And he said, "Yeah, this guy's being a real stickler, making me re-record things over and over again." I go, "Next time, talk to me first." But here's my trivia question from this study I found. Uh, it said 1 in 4 times when somebody buys a product or service, they're dissatisfied. So 4 people buy a car, one of them's unhappy about the experience. 4 people buy a sweater, one of them's not happy. 4 people get their poop scooped, one of them doesn't like how it was done. 1 in 4 is the average. But out of those dissatisfied customers, what percentage of them complain to the service provider about it? What do you think?
It's I feel like it's gotta be less than half. Wait, out of the dissatisfied?
Yeah, so out of the dissatisfied group, what percentage of them complain?
3? Or like
You're close, 5%.
okay.
5% complain, 95% just take their business elsewhere.
And I find that to be very accurate because when a customer wants to cancel service, I always say, if you don't mind me asking, what was the reason that you're canceling if they didn't give me an answer? And sometimes it's just personal reasons, or it's just, well, there was issues. I'm not happy with the service. And then I want to unpack it. What can we do to, be better? What happened? A lot of people will silently suffer until
Right.
they find
Well,
somebody else.
and so here's my advice based on what you just said, and you can take it or leave it. What do I know about scoop and poop? But, you're doing the right thing at the wrong time. They're saying, "I wanna end my service." Well, what could we have done better? It's like
Yeah.
you're it's like when your significant other dumps you and leaves a note on the fridge that says, "This isn't working," and you're like, wait, it's too late." Right? A much smarter move is before they ever say anything to find a way to have a conversation with them. And I know in the modern tech savvy world, everybody wants to do an automated bot sending out a text to them. I don't think that's where you win and lose. I think to find a way to get face to face with them somehow and say, "Hey, really enjoyed, keeping your yard clean for the last few months. Is there anything that we could do better? Is there any way that we could and you know what? They might ask you to do something you can't do, but more often than not, because here's what I've learned, right? There's dissatisfied customers, then there's satisfied. What's better than that?
A
A loyal
raving?
a loyal customer,
Okay.
right? And that's someone, and I ask my audiences sometimes, "Hey, those of you who are married, what if I called your spouse and said, 'Hey, tell me about your spouse?'" And they said, "Yeah, satisfactory." That would concern me. "Oh, he'll do until I find something better." Right, and so a loyal customer, right? And then better than that is a raving fan, someone who so loves what you do. I one author called them your apostles. They're out spreading the good news. And I guarantee you, you've had customers that have recommended you to their friends, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, we got all this poop in the yard." And they're like, "Oh my gosh, you need to call Erica." And man, those are worth their weight in gold. But my strategy when I was working in sales became, I'm going to start shooting for that. I had I told the story in my book, but I had the president of a big company, a regional president for one of America's biggest companies, called me up and wanted to meet with me. And he goes, "I heard the sales training you do is good, but I don't know. We train our people pretty good." And I go, "Oh, yeah, I'm sure you do." And he goes, "But here's my question." He goes, "We survey our customers and we ask them if they're satisfied, and we score very high." And he leaned forward and he goes, "Very high." He goes, "But every day we lose customers. How do you explain that?" I said, "Let me guess. When you survey your customers and ask them if they're satisfied, you get between 90 and 95% that say they're satisfied." And he goes, "Oh, 92.6%. How did you know that?" I said, "Well, I'm just a genius consultant." I didn't tell him that every company that surveys their customers and asks them if they're satisfied gets the same answer. And some of them are dumb enough to brag about it, right? Verizon's like 9 out of 10 Verizon customers would recommend Verizon. Well, of course, because all the millions of people that don't like Verizon have already switched to AT&T. Ford does it too. 9 out of 10 Ford owners would recommend a Ford. Yeah, because they like Fords. That's why they drive one. And so that became my strategy and if I was in your shoes to be, I do think, and it takes time, and you can't, I'm not saying every one of your customers you're going to take out to coffee every week. That you can't do that. But some kind of, hey, this isn't just, we're not just a vendor, right? You're doing business with me and my family. I would let him know. I'd find a way to introduce your husband to him, even if it's on, an email or something or a flyer or something that, hey, when you do business with us, you're supporting my young family and we really appreciate it. I'll tell you a story. And again, sometimes these are different industries that you got to kind of draw the lessons out of. but I got a friend who owns a frozen custard shop, right? And it's seasonal. It's open in the summertime, and it's no indoor seating. It's you go up and you get your ice cream, and sit out at the patio and eat your ice cream. And he's like, Jeff, I'm trying to increase my sales. What apps I use to increase my sales? What technology? What kind of advertising? And I go, I said, you know what I would start? Honestly, this is the only way I know how to give advice. What would I do if I was in your shoes? And I said, here's what I would do. I would be out on that patio every Friday night and Saturday night all summer, shaking hands and kissing babies like I was running for Congress.
Mhm.
And I would go up to some family eating their ice cream and saying, "Hey, is your ice cream good?" What are they going to say? Yeah.
Yeah.
And you say, "Hey, my name's Dale. This is my store. And this is how I'm putting my kids through college. And it means a lot to me that you're supporting my family business. Thank you. Come again soon, would you? Bring some of your friends." He started doing that. That summer, his sales doubled and his profits tripled.
Which is so huge, and you telling these stories, I know you said it. Like, we gotta pull from different, different places, but it all boils down to the same thing as connecting with your customer, and I think this is really important to talk about, especially with AI, the automations, trying to do things as, like, quickly as possible, and I got into this mindset as well. When I first started my business, I was very personable. I knew everybody's name. I knew the dog's name. I knew the backyard. I knew all of it because I was so focused on the business. And then as I got busier, I started to get staff. I started doing the social media. I was thinking, how am I going to automate this a little bit more? How can I make this easier? When I started doing that, that's when I drastically seen a change and a decrease in um, getting new customers, and then there was an increase of turnover. And I wasn't quite understanding what was going on until I sat back and really thought about it. I was like, you're not doing what you were doing in the beginning. You weren't connecting with the people. So I had to go back to that connection. Yes, it is time consuming, but it's very, very effective and it's very important for your business.
And it's the best use of your time. And again, I don't know the profit margins you're dealing with. I don't know any of those details. And so excuse me if I'm proposing something that wouldn't work in your business. But there are parts of your operation that can be automated, right? So things like invoicing
Yeah.
and you'd be crazy to have a calculator and a pencil and doing that by hand, right? Take advantage of technology whenever you can. Blasting things out can be, but when I have business owners tell me, well, I'm too busy to blank, if it's the people part of it, I mean, honestly, again, if I were in your shoes, not knowing anything about your margins or whatever, if you're too busy to be out connecting face to face with your customers, I would say that because you're scooping poop yourself, hire someone else to scoop the poop. The actual scooping of the poop part is something that can be delegated maybe to someone who's not as good at people as you, someone whose time isn't as valuable as yours. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, but I will say, so when I do hire, that's something that I what I look for is they have to have strong communication. I'll kinda give you a scenario so you kinda know what it
Well, they're
looks like behind the
representing your
scenes.
brand too, and they need to be people doing it too.
Yeah. So, like, okay, they're going there, they're scooping the poop. But say, for instance, if there's an issue in the backyard, there's a broken gate, or there's a trash can that has been emptied and it's by the road, they're pulling that trash can back and they're putting it back by the garage. They are gonna communicate with the customer if there is a package on the porch they see sitting there. When the service is complete, they're gonna let them know, "Hey, your service has been complete, your gate is closed, have a wonderful day." So we're making that connection, and that has to be done with every single service. But
Yeah,
I
no,
I
I think it's huge. I think it's
yeah,
great.
and a lot of our reviews, we get people that talk about the trash cans being pulled back, about the text messages of, "We're on the way, your service has been complete," the closed gate, and so I we get more reviews about that versus the, "Oh, they, do an excellent job," which we do, but those other ones stand out so much more, and I feel like those attract more customers than just, "Okay, they scoop the poop."
It's exactly right. My mentality when I'm, dealing with customers is what can I do? And I have this, if you've read my book, you know the answer, but I do this a lot in my training. The difference between 2 and 4. And I ask audiences this all the time. What's the difference between 2 and 4? And someone says 2, and I go, incorrect. Half, incorrect. Square root, nope. Usually somebody will say, well, a 2 is made out of a curved line and a 4 is made out of straight lines. And I'm like, well, now you're getting outside the box, but that's still not it. And people don't get it because in my question, 2 and 4 aren't numbers, they're prepositions. That when an ordinary service provider shows up at someone's house, something is happening to them in their property. But when a world class service provider shows up, something is happening for them, right? That we're here for you. What can I do for my customers that my competitors can't or won't? The garbage cans are a great example of that. Hey, quick text. There's a package on your porch that we noticed. Hey, I saw someone kind of suspicious in a purple hat walking on your street. And I don't know. I'm just giving you a heads up. What any little thing. In my world, it's someone will hire me to speak somewhere, and oh, we want you to do a 2-hour training session, and I'm like, hey, while I'm there, would you be interested in me doing a breakout session and doing another hour for everyone in your company who manages people on leadership? Oh, what would you charge us for that? No extra charge. I'm going to be there anyway.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my gosh. And then they're online. Oh, this is the best training ever. And it's, and again, I feel like a broken record sometimes that I didn't make up a lot of these ideas. That little idea came from a guy I know who looks just like your husband, and he was given a speech once called the Sermon on the Mount.
I was gonna say.
And in Jesus' most famous sermon he ever gave, he said, "Hey, there was a law at the time that that he was speaking to Jewish farmers and fishermen and peasants who were under the very strict, cruel rule of the Roman Empire. And there was a law at the time that if a Roman soldier could take any Jewish guy and say, hey, carry my stuff, and you had to carry it for a mile. Very unpopular law. And Jesus is talking, and he goes, hey, if someone asks you to go a mile with them, go 2 miles. And I guarantee people were like, Jesus, what are you crazy? And but when you do, it's going the extra mile. What can I do? That's the extra mile. It's the little touches. I think you're smart, Erica. By the way, you got your little cartoon, version of yourself on all the vehicles, and as part of your branding. That's there may come a time when you have franchised units in 100, different locations that it may be a little bit different. But I'm telling you, I think there's something powerful about I would rather be doing business with Erica, who's a person, than a company. I'd always rather do business. I spoke a couple of times. I've been asked to be a keynote speaker. I do a lot of training in the food industry. And I was a speaker at the North American Pizza and Ice Cream Show. And it was all the people in the country who own independent pizza shops. And they sit around and complaining that they have such a disadvantage to Pizza Hut, Little Caesars, Domino's, Papa John's. Oh, boo-hoo, how can we compete? And what they're complaining about is that those big companies do have some advantages. They get an advantage on pricing for the ingredients they buy, right? They get cheese for a cheaper price and they get national advertising. But I tell them, what determines if somebody really wants to come back to a restaurant? It's how they were treated when they were there. It's the difference. That 2 versus 4, where I first learned that idea is I read a book by Danny Meyer, who owns the 5 most profitable restaurants in New York City. And he wrote a book called Setting the Tale. And he said the difference between 2 and 4 is the difference between service and hospitality. Service is, did the job get, in your world, service was the poop cleaned up at the right time, properly disposed of properly? That's the service. The hospitality is, how do people feel about doing business with you and your company? And I am convinced that's the tipping point. That's the companies that win. Those are the people that have huge increases. Those are the people that get great reviews. Those are the people that are referring themselves to other. You don't even have to incentivize them, and even I feel like I'm rambling now, so feel free to ask some questions.
Oh, yeah, no, I got questions for you.
Bring 'em.
I'm really bad about, cutting people off, so I've been trying to be better about that. I got a whole list of questions for you.
All right, let's hear 'em. What do you got?
All right, so these are actually from, um this is from Emma, but it was pretty much very similar questions, which in sales, a lot of us, we want to learn how to sell without being pushy. So if we're not selling picking up poop, we're selling, um more free time, more time with the family. I'm sure there's different reasons for different people. Like, how do we go about creating like social media content and getting the word out there without being like, we sell, we're a pooper scooper and we can scoop your dog poop. Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, that's a great question because a lot of the selling that I've done is like business to business where you're having a sales call.
Yeah.
You're not going around ringing doorbells and saying like, "So tell me about your life." And so for you guys to be making some assumptions and I would have your advertising covering all of it, but you're selling a clean yard. You're selling safety, right? I know when our kids were little, we had a son on the autism spectrum, and one of the things we were very concerned about is having a dog that was going to poop in our backyard because it could be a safety issue.
Yeah.
And what are we going to do? And so there's a segment of people that for some people it's going to ruin their lawn. I'd be thinking up everything that people might want, that pooping scooping would be a solution to that. If it's like, "Hey, are you tired of, but it'd be around my advertising would be around the emotional stuff. Are you tired of this? Have you ever had someone come over and they stepped in some dog poop in your yard? Have you ever had poop on your shoe? Anyone who's ever had dog poop on their shoe and knows how gross that is. I'm sure in your world it happens every day to your shoes.
Well, I try to be good about not stepping in it,
Yeah.
but I can't say that it doesn't happen.
But anyone who's ever like, "Oh, I've been scraping their shoe on the," that, but that we provide, friendly, thorough, honest, that's the stuff I would be marketing, right? That we're responsive, we're flexible, we have a customized options based on your needs. And and you may decide to try to do some add-ons in there that maybe will take your garbage to the curb if you want us to come on a certain day. I don't know if that makes sense to do that or not. But I'd be looking at the emotional side of it, not just the transaction of the picking up, that we're gonna help you be proud of your yard again.
That pain or pleasure.
Yeah, yeah, but it's because it's the emotional
Yeah.
stuff that makes people decide to spend that money, I think. And then I would add to that the gratitude piece of it, I think, can't be over explained, to be thanking the customers you have for their business. And I'm not like, oh, thank you, but just for people to know that, hey, we really appreciate it. Because the people, I suspect a lot of some of the people that cancel their service in your line of work are probably dissatisfied with the service. I probably a lot of them have a job change. Someone's been laid off. They start looking at their budget.
Yeah.
Where
Yep.
can we make where can we make some cuts? Well, we can't turn off the heat.
Mhm.
We ain't turning off Netflix. And they start looking at the poop and scooping. We could probably do that ourselves. And so that, you want to have that emotional thing where they're like, for lack of a better word, I'd feel guilty dumping Erica and her team because we've been loyal customers. I'd be thanking them on the 1 year anniversary. I'd be thanking them on the 6 month anniversary. Hey, we've been partners in keeping your yard free of dog poop for a year now. Happy anniversary.
Now, how would you do that? Would you do that a handwritten card, an email, a text message,
Maybe all the above.
a phone call?
Um, yeah, I think it would depend on you. If you had the time, I think a phone call, man, or a handwritten card.
Okay.
Like I get on my birthday every year, you probably get them too. I get a bunch of automated text messages from dentist office and from the chiropractor. Hey, this is Dr. Johnson's office. Happy birthday. Well, I know, and so does everyone else, that Dr. Johnson isn't sending me that message.
It's true.
It's an automated system and it turns me off. I would rather not get the message than get an automated message suggesting that I'm an idiot.
This is, very similar. I don't know if you listened to Andy Frisella, but he was
Mm.
talking about this specific, topic. He bought a Rolls Royce, and he got a thank you card or something in the mail, but he could tell that it was like a pre-printed one, and he said that he would have much rathered not received one because it was, like, one of those automated ones because it was an insult. With the amount of money that he spent and, like, the dedication, he would have expected a handwritten one, and
I oh, I totally agree, and even in my world, anything that stands out, right? Like, I don't send Christmas cards to my customers because everybody sends Christmas cards. I'm more likely to to send someone a message and say, "Hey, you know what? It was 3 years ago that we first did business together, and I'm really proud to have you as one of my customers."
now you
A
are
and
very,
how many of those does somebody get every year?
very limited.
None.
Now you are a very personable person, as am I. What about the person that's listening that struggles with communication and they struggle with connecting with people? How
Oh,
can they still do this?
great question. Here's my advice to them: change.
Oh, how do they do that?
Work on it. Communication, connecting with people is a skill like anything else. It's like driving a car. When I first got behind the wheel, I wasn't a very good driver. I wasn't like, well, I guess it's just not my personality to travel. You know what I did? I practiced and I took some classes and I got better over time. The same is true about everything I'm good at today. I practiced. I get people tell me all the time. I knew a guy who's a very successful businessman who's former, Army Ranger, but he's like, Jeff, I wish I was blessed with communication skills like you have, like you were.
Hmm.
And I go, and this guy's ripped. I go, yeah, I wish I was blessed with big muscles like you have. He goes, oh, a lot of work, a lot of hours in the gym, brother. And I go, yeah, same with me. I've done 10,000 speaking events. I wasn't blessed with speaking skills. I think people use their personality or their temperament or their background as an excuse way too much. I think everybody was born the same. You were born naked, hungry, and upset. That's how you were born, and everything else you've learned. And if you're quiet, you've learned to be quiet. Speak up. It's an uncomfortable answer for people, but well, I'm not. That's out of my comfort zone.
Yep.
Yeah. Are we talking about entrepreneurs here? The last podcast I was on was some college students that were entrepreneurial majors, and we were talking about entrepreneurism. And I go, I know it sounds good to you guys. It's the most difficult thing you could do. Oh, it's the most rewarding. But I said, I go, hey, if I did a podcast on how to be a good employee, it would be really short. Here's what I would say: find out what's important to your boss and do it.
Yep. Show up.
That's it. Do your best to make your boss happy. The end. Oh, you want to be an entrepreneur? Oh, well, now you have to learn a little bit about real estate and about banking and about hiring and about taxes and about leadership and about recruiting people and about mentoring. And right? I mean, it's difficult. And so when someone says, "Well, I'm just not really good with people," change. Anyone can become good with people. There's a thousand books on it. And
Mhm.
sometimes I get people mad. I'm like, well, how many books have you read on that in the last year? Or audiobooks have you listened to about communication? Well, none, because that's not my comfort zone. This is the reason you should be listening to those. And so it's not a bad question, but that's my answer is I think you can learn to be good at that. And you know what? The people I know that are not naturally bubbly, extroverted people like you and I are, I mean,
Mhm.
there is something to be said for that. But when someone goes out of their way to connect with me and I can tell it's not natural for them, it means more to me. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
It does because they actually had to put that effort in.
Yeah.
Now, how can okay, can you tell when somebody is being, like, inauthentic when
Yes.
they're trying too hard?
I think everybody can tell. That's why it has to be authentic. That it can't, you're my best customer. Wink. If it's not true, people can tell. You know, I
Okay.
I tell the story in my book about, and you guys are in the dog business, and so I think dogs are like this too. Dogs can sense fear. They can sense who's good and who's bad. They can just sense it. But I had 2 days in a row, long story short, a couple years ago, the first day I was sitting with my friends having some lunch, and this guy comes walking up to us, him and his daughter, little girl. And you could feel that that guy was about to ask us for some money.
Mm.
You just feel it. You could see it in his eyes. It had that vibe. And he goes, excuse me, I'm from Louisville. My car broke down. I need some gas money. Can anybody have any gas money? And I gave him 20 bucks. And someone goes, oh, he's just scamming you. And I go, well, maybe, but hope things get better for that guy. But I could tell. The next day, I'm out at Kings Island Amusement Park and we're waiting to meet some friends there. And this lady comes walking up. And before she said a word, you could tell that she was about to give us something. She goes, hey, do you guys have your tickets yet? Because we have 3 extra tickets. And if you want them, you can have them. And we're like, oh, well, we have season passes, but oh my gosh, thank you. And then she found another family and gave those tickets away. But you could see it in her eyes that she was looking to give. And I think people can sense, are you a giver? Are you a taker? Are you for real? And so if you don't appreciate your customers, well, then don't thank them. I think most people do. They just that kind of thing ends up on the back burner. I don't know if you've ever seen the quadrants. I think it comes from Stephen Covey about urgency and importance.
No, can you explain that a little bit?
Imagine an X axis and a Y axis, right? That and on one is things that are important and one is things that are urgent. And so you split it into 4 quadrants. There's some things that are urgent and important. Paying your bills, getting your work done, right? There's some things that are urgent, but not really important. You need to try, those are the things you want to try to minimize and automate if you can. There are things that are neither urgent or important, right? This is playing video games, goofing around, watching movies, and too much time spent in that quadrant will ruin your life. But then there's this quadrant of things that are important, but not urgent. That's where success and failure happens in my experience. That's self-development is important, but not urgent. That's going to the gym. Going to
Yeah,
the gym's not urgent, but it's important. Thanking your customers. Any of the people side of the business falls into that important, but not urgent. Someone said they like my mug, by the way. Go blue.
that's Branch Buster, that's my husband.
Eh.
Yeah, and then,
Wait till you
Courtney.
see wait till you see this side. It matches.
Ooh, nice. And then Courtney says, she definitely texts a client about a suspicious person, which is good. Okay, so you were just talking about the different quadrants, and I actually was just having I was actually let's get personal here. I was having a mini meltdown this morning. Um, I'm married, you're married. Relationships are a great time. You have your ups and downs. And I was thinking about how my personality, like I'm always got to be doing. I'm very much so in like this personal development. I want to grow. I have all these dreams and goals, and I really think that every moment should be filled with something. And my husband, on the other hand, he loves life. He likes to enjoy time, and I'm trying to figure out in my mind what a good balance is between like hanging out and watching TV and then working too much. And as I was driving into work, I'm like, am I doing too much? Like, is this like, what am I doing? What am I actually doing with my life right now? And I think entrepreneurs, like, we struggle with this balance. Is there any way you can talk about that a little bit? Just about
Yeah, I'm happy to. And have you guys, I know you've heard about it. Have you been yet to Together in the Trades?
We haven't. We thought about going, and it just hasn't happened.
I recommend it. I think it's a good thing, right? And it's for couples that are in business together. I think there's something about being, in business and in love, and some couples are like in business, together doing it. It seems in the lawn business that happens a lot. He's mowing grass and she's doing the paperwork. Um, but not always, Jeremiah Jennings, if you know him, I've got to know him a little bit. And he's got a lawn care business and his wife is a nurse, right? And
Yeah,
she's got a good career doing that. And she gets a lot of pressure like, well, you should quit your job and work in the family business. And she's like, it's no one's business what you're doing with your life.
right.
Um, I think, the everybody's different in that regard. I have some friends that, like, for them, working is fun. Like, let's have some fun. Let's go work, you know?
That's me. I'm a
Yeah,
psycho.
and I'm not one of those people. I like to work and I like to play. What I like to do as much as I can is to overlap it, right? That the work I do is fun and it's rewarding and I'm speaking somewhere, but I just got off a little 3-week speaking tour where I spoke at 11 events and, different states around the country. But on the days in between, I went hiking at Death Valley National Park, and then I was at Saguaro National Park, and I had a day in Las Vegas, and I went around and played blackjack at like 6 different casinos, and to see if I could end up ahead or behind. And I was just even. I was going to the airport. I played a few more hands and lost $100. I'm like, you know. But I think, but my wife, who she's not involved in our business, in my speaking business. She does the paperwork and the taxes and stuff, but she's an accountant. She works at she's the finance director for our local YMCA. And but something I recommend to people is making sure you're on the same page with like your purpose,
Mm,
right? We went through an exercise it's probably been 15 years ago now. I read the book oh, I forgot what it's called now. Something about purpose. But we did a little like, okay, like why are we and I spoke about this at Together in the Trades once. I said, raise your hand if you think God brought you and your spouse together. Everybody raises their hand. And I go, for what?
ah,
And they're like, to be happy? And I go, I read the whole Bible. I don't think God's calling people to happiness. I never even saw that. And I said, I think, that God doesn't do anything without a purpose. There's a purpose that you're together. God brought you and Josh together for a purpose, and that purpose is bigger than you, and it's bigger than making money, and it's bigger than being happy. And I challenge couples all the time to figure that out. What is that? And we came up with it's framed on the wall right over here. I'd spin this all around and show you the Joiner family purpose. And this is what I believe, that I'm on this earth for. And this is just me to glorify God by living victoriously and abundantly and to help and equip other people to do the same. So that's my purpose. I'm here to win and to help other people learn how to win. And my wife and I are on the same page with that. That's how we make decisions on how we spend our time. So
mm,
you say, "Hey, will you be on my podcast?" Is that under the umbrella of helping other people thrive and win? Yeah.
yeah.
This is right in my wheelhouse of my purpose that what I'm doing. This is just as valuable to my life's purpose than when I'm speaking to 10,000 people. Spending time with my kids, that's under that purpose. Um, I like to play pickleball. People are like, man, you're good enough. If you took a bunch of lessons, you could play in tournaments and win some medals and trophies. And I'm like, yeah, it's not part of my purpose, right? And so to be unified together. Now, if one of you like needs to chill more and watch TV more every now and then, that's fine. But I I recommend people. I think people are a little too chill in my experience. I heard an interview on the radio, and I need to find out the guy who wrote this book, but he was claiming that all of America's problems are because people have too much free time. He said, we're the first generation in the history of humanity that even has free time. that 100 years ago, every human being on earth was focused all day long on survival, right? They were working
Yeah.
and earning and building and providing, and maybe they had one little hobby like collecting stamps. But people weren't sitting around for hours every day. But technology, things have gotten easier, communication and cell phones and the internet. And it's what's led to people marching in the street over stupid things. It's what's led to people fighting with each other about just dumb things that don't matter. And so I think some people, hey, you need to slow down. I think most people, you need to step it up. And I think that there's some I think the satisfaction that you get from watching TV is kind of artificial, right? It's like empty calories
Mhm.
compared to the satisfaction that you get achieving, accomplishing, serving other people. That's what I tell when friends of mine come to me and they're having some rocky time in their marriage. They're like, "Well, we just need to spend more time together." And I'm like, "Not if you hate each other." My advice is if you're going to spend more time together, why don't you go do it in service to somebody else? Why don't the two of you together go out and feed some homeless people? Why don't the two of you go help somebody who needs some help and see if that doesn't draw you closer together? That love isn't just sitting next to each other gazing out, it's looking in the same direction, that we're going somewhere. And when your husband writes you a little note of encouragement, he's helping you toward your purpose. And same thing for him. When you're encouraging each other, when you appreciate each other, when you're recognizing each other's strengths, and you're moving, I don't know if this metaphor makes sense, but two people, let's say you got two people being towed by a ski boat, and there's just ropes. They're hooked to ropes and they're floating. What would you do if you wanted them to draw them real close together? That when you're moving in a direction, that draws you close together. And so, I know you just a little bit. I don't know your husband at all. I think I met him once or twice. But for you guys, that would be my advice, that, hey, if he likes to chill a little more than you, well, then it's okay to do. That's our thing that we've learned. It's okay to do things separately. Right. I got some hobbies that I like to do. I like to play disc golf, is one of my favorite sports. My wife is zero interested in that. And so when I'm out playing, she's not like, "Oh, Jeff left us again." And the other thing, I don't know if you guys plan on having kids at some point, but that's a whole
I think I'm
nother.
too old for that now. We actually Josh has 3 children, from his first marriage, and the twins are 17, they'll be 18, and Ethan is already 19, so we're on, like, the back end of that.
Okay,
And
gotcha. See,
and people
I thought you
ask.
were like 23 years old. I thought you were a baby.
Oh, no, I'm getting close to 40.
Holy moly.
Um,
Well, you
Josh
don't look it, so that's good.
Josh, how old are we gonna be this year? I ask him that all the time. He's like, "How do you not remember how old you are?" I'm like, "I don't know. It's not important. I think I'm 25 still." But I get asked this question, like, if Josh is in the business with me and I have to explain, like, no, he has his own career. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure this out too. Like, I still feel like I'm still a young, even though we've been together for quite some time, like, I still feel like we're a young couple just trying to navigate life. And now that the kids are getting older, and now it's like, okay, who are we? Who are we as a couple that has time together? What do we enjoy to do that's not kid related?
Yeah. Well,
Hmm,
and I think that's fun figuring that out. My
yeah.
challenge to you is to find some things you can do that are benefiting other people. And boy, is that rewarding. My other little kind of communication nugget that I have seen, that I've worked with some couples that has helped them, is, you want to draw closer to your spouse. Go say some nice things about them behind their back.
Oh.
For you, when someone says, you're married. Yeah, let me tell you about Josh. He's the most amazing man I've ever met. He's my dream come true. He's my hero. It's amazing. And as you're saying those words, your relationship is drawing closer together. I tell people with young kids this. I'm just talked to a guy who's very successful business owner who's starting to get invited to do some speaking, and he's away from home for the first time, and he's got little kids, and he goes, I'm trying to balance like my passion for my family with like my career, and and I goes like my son's soccer game. I'm going to miss my son's soccer game to go speak at this conference in Florida, and I always swore I would never miss a soccer game. And what do I do? And he said, I asked him, I said, have you gone through the stuffed animals at the airport phase yet, where you bring home stuffed animals for the kids? And he goes, yeah. And I go, that doesn't help. I said, your kids are either going to grow up thinking that you are an absentee dad, gone all the time chasing money, or they're going to grow up thinking that you are a hero and a provider. And what's going to determine that is nothing you do. It's how your wife talks about you when you're not home. If
Man.
when if when you're in Florida, your wife is like, well, I bet your dad, we're eating mac and cheese. Bet your dad's having a real gourmet meal somewhere right now. Your kids are going to grow up to resent you. When my kids were little and I was gone and I travel a lot, I do about 50 events a year. My wife was telling the kids, hey, your dad's out serving people. Your dad's slaying dragons. Your dad's providing for this family. Your dad's our hero. And those little kind of things make a big difference. There's so much more, I think, that comes down to communication than people think.
And I know we kinda took a detour from, like, sales and business, but the on the communication is so important in relationships, in your home life, because if your home life is whatever, stressful, then that translates over to work. And what's the analogy? Like, something happens at work, your boss yells at you, you get mad, you come home, you yell at your wife, the wife yells at the kids, and then the kid kicks the dog, so it all rolls downhill.
Yep. Yep, yep. And the words that you speak are pretty powerful about your business, about your relationships, about whatever. So, what other questions do you have? I keep
Yeah.
rolling on different topics.
Yeah, all right, I'm gonna open up the chat, you guys, so if you have any questions, go ahead and ask those. I'll let those pop in here for a minute. But just to confirm, we're 38. So, Josh just let me know that.
I see that in the chat. You guys are babies. You got a whole world in front of you.
No, that's fun. Yeah, Josh is really good. I always tell people he's got great hair when he's not around because he has got that good curly hair. It's really good. All right. Well, while I'm waiting, let me go through here and look at a couple of these questions. Um,
Hey, I got a question for you. I saw that there's a ScoopCon is happening. All the pooper scoopers are getting together. I was a
yeah,
little disappointed that nobody invited me to be a speaker at that. I want to go to Idaho. It's up by Spokane, Washington, and
yeah.
maybe next time. But
No,
that looks pretty cool that when I first met you, I thought that you invented this industry. I didn't realize it was like a whole big thing.
nope, I was just the only one that decided to really hop on camera and start talking about it. We actually we were talking, me and William were talking. He's the one that's actually throwing ScoopCon, and we have a lot of the speakers, but we do have a couple more spots that we're trying to like figure out and plug and play people. This is the first one that we've ever put on, so we have a lot to learn, a lot to figure out. And today, publicly, we announced it. It was private in the Poop Scoop Millionaire community that William has, but today the tickets are live, so we'll see how it goes.
Well,
Um,
if they're looking for someone who's, and that's what Brian has always liked to do is someone from the outside, kind of a motivational speaker that isn't, exactly in the industry, but kind of gets what you're doing. I'll cut you a good deal because I like you guys, and where you're having that conference is a cool place. I've started as my business has grown. My wife catches me. I'll be like, I just got asked if I could speak in Alaska, which is the one state I haven't been to, and they're like, "What do you charge?" And I'm like, "Whatever," 'cause I don't want to go to Alaska.
yeah.
And so I'll get requests like, "Would you want to come to Milwaukee?" And I'm like, "No." You
Borderline
want to
Idaho is pretty.
you want to come to Sedona, Arizona? Yes. So yeah, I've only been, I was in Idaho Falls speaking at a conference, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful here. And they were like, shh, don't tell anybody. Everybody's moving here. They said,
Everything's changing.
They said everybody from California and New York are moving to Idaho because it's so beautiful. And they said, and they bring their politics from California. That doesn't help.
You ever see those bumper stickers that's like, "Don't California my state"?
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. That's a
It's
good one.
interesting. It is interesting the people that are like, "Oh, like California's been driven, everything's so expensive, so I'm gonna move to Texas and then vote the same way." But whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
World's full of all different kinds. But yeah, good luck with your scoop con. If I can ever be of service to that, let me know. I think what I've talked about you behind your back in that I respect people that look out into the marketplace and say, all right, how can I fill a need that other people aren't? And especially, you're kind of micro dirty jobs, you're doing something that, with it's similar to my world in this weird way is that I tell people, "Oh, I do public speaking." Sometimes I talk to 1,000 people for hours and people go, "I would never do that." I go, "I know. That's why I get paid so much to do it because most people never would." But you guys are in a related field doing something that some people would feel they're too good for. I think you're smart.
I appreciate it. It was easy to get into, and it was fun. I enjoyed, like, trying to figure it out because this was before, like, me and my big mouth is blabbing all over the internet, creating all this content, so I was, like, piecing everything together, just trying to figure it out, and now the landscape has, like, really changed, and that's the reason why I leaned into the landscaping, the green industry so much because I seen what they were doing, and which is really nice because now I can bring this back. So we're having this conference in May. I have a lot of ideas from the different conferences I've been to. And then with the public speaking, I actually want to talk on that for a minute because that was one of the questions is okay, you talk on stages where there's a lot of people, maybe it's more intimate. What if somebody wants to go to like a BNI meeting and they want to do a little presentation? What's a couple tips to get them to feel comfortable when they're presenting to connect with people?
That's a good question. There's a book I really recommend that people get their hands on. It's really, really, and if you I don't know if you're watching this, but I do talk about this in my book. Most people are afraid of public speaking, right? When they do surveys worldwide and ask people what's your number one fear, 75% of people say public speaking. And I think that's nonsense. I don't think anyone is afraid of public speaking. It's not dangerous. The microphone is not going to shock you. Nobody's going to, tackle you. What people are afraid of, and I just was a guest lecturer in a college class Tuesday night, and I was asking these college students, who would say you're afraid of public speaking? Almost all of them raised their hand. I said, no, you're not. You're not afraid of public speaking. Don't be stupid. What are you really afraid of? And somebody goes, looking like an idiot. And I go, that's what you're afraid of. You're afraid of messing up, doing it wrong, looking silly, looking bad. Let's dig into that a little bit. What are you really you're too afraid of what people think of you.
Mm,
If and hey, good luck being an entrepreneur if you're afraid of what people think of you. Yes, your online presence is important, your reputation is important, but there's going to be people that don't get you and don't like you, and you got to get over that. And so I think getting over a fear of public speaking is as easy as I think here's where people I think go wrong is they're talking somewhere in front of a chamber of commerce meeting, whatever. And which, I don't know. I've found limited usefulness in some of those networking groups, right? Because you're
mm.
you're not talking to other potential customers. You're looking for other people that are desperate to find other customers. It's like, oh, the product fair. We're all going to get together, and a bunch of moms are going to get together, and someone's got this table and that table, and there's no customers. But
Yep.
um, but short tutorial on presenting is the mistake most people make is as they're talking to an audience, they're thinking about themselves. Oh, I don't want to sound dumb. Oh, did I say that right? Oh, how do I? I sound. Oh, people aren't listening. Me, and that causes your stress to go up, and you start to sweat, and you freak out. That's not what I'm thinking about when I'm talking to an audience. I'm not thinking about myself. I'm thinking about them. how can I convey some information that's going to help these people, even if what I'm helping them is to understand what my business is and what I do. I'm telling, hey, if you believe in your company and you believe you provide a great service, there's nothing to be shy and ashamed about to go around telling people that. I mean, I don't know if it's because a lot of entrepreneurs used to have jobs and they haven't really learned entrepreneurial mentality. But if I was one of you guys listening to this podcast, I'd be talking to every person I see. If I'm at Kroger buying groceries and there's someone in line behind me, I'd say, "Hey, excuse me. I know this might sound weird, but I own a business and I help people clean their yards out of their dog waste. If you're ever looking for somebody to help you with that, here's my card. My name's Erica. What's your name? Oh, my name's Diana. I was kind of thinking about what if they say, well, I don't even have a dog. Okay.
You should get one.
I talk to people. I mean, I'm on flights. And I'm like, I can't believe people that sit on a flight and they're 1 inch away from another. Sometimes they're touching for an hour
Mhm.
and they don't talk to them.
So, I've been to a couple of your presentations, I've read your book, I've watched your YouTube channel, which after we're done right here, we can talk about your YouTube channel and kinda close this out. But as you're speaking, it really makes me think of how I changed how I interact in public from what you have said. When I'm standing in line, I try not to have my phone, I try not to be playing on my phone because 'cause I'm looking for an opportunity to engage with somebody. When I go to the gym in the morning and I see somebody walk in or I walk by them, I address them by their first name and say good morning because I want somebody to address me that way.
Absolutely. And I don't think there's, and I don't know people, I don't know what it is psychologically, but there's nothing wrong with seeing that person at the no, I'm not saying running up and tackling strangers and chasing them around and being a psycho and stalking people. But if there's somebody you've seen 3 times at the gym, just say, "Hey, Steve, right? Hey, I don't know if you know what I do, but I run a business and we remove dog waste from people's yards. And I meet all kinds of I meet my customers in the strangest places. If you're ever looking for that service or know somebody who is and you give them your card, man, I would love a referral. And even if they don't, you've just connected with them. People are lonely. There's an epidemic of loneliness that was announced by our last Surgeon General just last year. That people are more connected than ever before digitally, but they're feeling more lonely than ever. And so, man, I was on a flight a couple weeks ago and I get talking to this woman next to me and she's from Cincinnati area, she's moving and young kids, blah blah blah. Anyway, she said turns out she's the CEO of the Holocaust Museum. I'm like, well, that's interesting. And we start talking about that and what's that like and what are the challenges you face. And when I'm done, I said, hey, you know what? Let me give you a copy of my book. I'm like, this is an influential lady.
Yep.
I would bet money that that's going to lead to someone hiring me to speak somewhere. You don't have to
Oh,
have a book. You don't have a book to do that. But I sometimes take it too far. I was at the gym and guy had his headphones on and I was like, hey, I was trying to talk to him. Hey, hey. And he takes his headphones off. We start talking and he goes, no offense. I thought at first that you were like special needs. Like, I don't want to be coming across like that. Hi,
right?
do you want to be my friend? So I'm like, okay, dial it back a little bit. Um, but here's my goal is that I'm going to be, and it's not always, hey, let me tell you about my business. If you're not used to doing that and you want to get better at it, here's the easiest way: give compliments.
I
Compliments.
do this without realizing that I was doing it, and my dad pointed that out. He's like, "You're really good at that." But it was an icebreaker.
Yeah, I'll go up if I'm at a restaurant. I was at a restaurant. I saw a mom and a dad and a little boy and a little girl, and they all prayed for their meal before the food came. And I just saw them across the way. Is at Texas Roadhouse. And when I got up to leave, I stopped by and I said, "Hey, excuse me. I saw you guys pray for your meal, and I thought, man, what an awesome family. You guys are a great mom and dad, I can tell, and these are great kids." And they're all like, "Oh." I bet you that's the first time a stranger ever told them that, and I bet they'll be talking about it for the next year.
They'll probably
Co
be talking about it for longer. That was probably
Yeah,
like it was probably huge.
right. By the way, cost to me to do that, Nothing.
Zero.
Nothing. Cost to talk to somebody in line at the store or whatever. I see people more and more, they wanna rely on the billboards, the advertising, the branded truck, the door hangers. Is that stuff important? Yeah, I'm not saying don't do that stuff, but what really moves the needle, I'm convinced, is a person-to-person connection. And a lot of times it is a referral. You can get referrals not just from your happy customers, but let's say you're talking to somebody at the nail salon about what you do, and they go, "You know what? My son, his yard's full of dog shit. I need to get," and you might get a referral that way. And perfect. It's the most powerful form of marketing through all of human history, word of mouth.
It is, and this is actually going to circle back to what we were talking about in the beginning to kinda close this all together. When y The different parts of your life are all yoked, so you are a good person in business, you're a good person in actual life, like, you're not faking it. When you're out there communicating with people, you're posting on your social media. With me, I'm sharing my life, I'm putting that stuff out there, so people in turn are connecting with me in different facets. So maybe they don't necessarily have a dog, but they know somebody that has a dog. And when they ask for dog poop removal or even social media content or a gym referral, they're tagging me. They're referring me out because just by existing and sharing it, I'm getting referred out, and that's why I do think it's important to when you're in business like this, like you can't just like be a hermit. You can't just be by yourself and stay home, not say anything. You have to put yourself out there as a business owner. If you don't, you're going to spend so much money on advertising, so much money, and it might
Right.
not even be effective.
Yep, exactly right. And I get on these lawn care guys about that. At the last Launchpreneur, I called them out. I go, "Hey, show of hands if the reason you got into this is because you had a job and you hated it and you want to be in business for yourself. And what you liked about mowing lawns was putting headphones on and riding and not having to deal with people. That's what first attract." Almost all of them raised their hand. And they realize, okay, you're never going to make any money unless you build a team and get a bunch of customers. And those are people endeavors. Yeah, and you're getting your mind around kind of, I saw a quote that I really liked. There's like the master of the art of living makes no distinction between his work and his play, his leisure and his religion. People always wonder, is this person working or playing? Because they're always seem to be doing both. And that's my world. And so if you are willing, like you are, to be transparent, to be real, and to connect with and communicate with people. Okay, if you're willing to do those two things, which you obviously are, and the people listening to this are probably working on, then see if this makes sense. I don't know if I've ever explained it this way, but this makes sense in my mind. As you become a better person, you're working on yourself, that gets magnified
Mhm.
because of your transparency. You know what I'm saying? So you become 1% better person because of something you've learned or a struggle you've been through or a lesson you've learned. Most people are living these private struggle victories that don't benefit anyone but themselves. But you've chosen to put yourself in a place where those struggle victories are going out into the universe for hundreds, maybe thousands, someday maybe tens of thousands of people. And that's a beautiful way to live your life. The guy in Hollywood that I think about is like Denzel Washington. That seems to be that guy that is like authentic and like wants to make a difference with people. There's lots of famous people that are like that, that I think, who you are gets magnified as you get a little bit of notoriety or whatever. Some of the feedback I get all the time when I spend, like, "Oh, wow, you're the same on stage as you are in person." I'm like, "I'm so glad that you think that because that's what I'm going for." You
It's
know,
hard
I
to be 2 different people, and I this is what I said, I want somebody to be able to put a camera on me, or if a police officer were to pull me over, I got nothing to worry about because I'm not being nasty, I'm not being filthy, I'm just trying to live my life right, now trying to walk with the Lord, and That allows me to just be. I don't have to think about, "Oh, I gotta make sure I do this, and I gotta put on a fake facade." That takes too much energy. You
It
just let the personality
it's
shine through.
it's exhausting, the amount of energy people put into trying to convince people that they're perfect when everyone knows you're not perfect, and if you would just be you, what's the one thing you're always gonna be best at is being yourself. And then, as you develop this kind of, and I know we're kindred spirits that just you care about other people. You're not doing these podcasts to get rich. There's just you're not getting rich making these, but you're trying to make a difference for other people. And people can sense that. One last story. I was speaking in Florida 2 weeks ago in Gainesville, Florida, and about 200 people in this audience. And we were doing like a 4 hour leadership training. We took a break, and this one guy comes up and he goes, I got a question. I go, what? And he goes, why is this so impactful? And I said, what do you mean? He goes, I've been to hundreds of these professional development days and I've never got anything out of them. He goes, but man, I'm taking notes like crazy. And you make me want to change everything about how I treat my team. And he goes, but I don't get it. And I said, well, part of it is because I'm awesome at what I do. And, jokingly, but I said, I'll show you after the break. And so everybody got back in their seats and I go, hey, Steve was asking why this is so impactful. And I wanted to demonstrate for him. I said, this was after being 2 hours in front of these people, doing my thing, talking about the stuff that I talk about. And I said, raise your hand if you think I'm the smartest person you ever met. Nobody raised their hand. They'd be crazy to raise their hand. And I said, okay, that does not hurt my feelings. Question number two, raise your hand if you believe that I honestly care about you having a happier life and a better marriage and being better leaders and having less stress. Raise your hand if you believe that that's where and everyone raised their hand. And I said, see, that's the difference. Most people, when they get up in front of an audience, what they're trying to convince everybody is how smart they are.
Yeah.
Let me tell you how smart I am. Oh, everybody knows that I'm not that smart. But I've learned some things and I care about people and I'm willing to take my eyes off myself. And wow, if that doesn't make just money show up in your bank account, it's weird. And with that, we
I
were
could
doing an
talk to you
hour
forever.
podcast and I'm looking, we're like at an hour and a half.
I know, I
you're gonna have
wanna
to
just talk to you forever. That's why I gotta say it, but I don't want to. But as we wrap up this episode, w where can our listeners find you at?
well, I think we mentioned my book and I do recommend it. It's called Say It Like It Matters When It Matters. It's a third public speaking, a third selling, and then a third crucial conversations you'll have in your life. Communicating with your spouse, communicating with strangers, communicating with difficult people. Also, my website is jeffjoyner.com, Joiner, and you can find me there. And that's really kind of focused on the speaking and training I do. I did start a YouTube channel. I don't do a podcast, but Brian Fullerton actually challenged me back during COVID. All of my events got canceled. I mean,
Yeah.
literally about $400,000 worth of contracted events I had went like a fart in the wind. Like, and Brian called me up and he said, I can't believe that you don't have a YouTube channel with all the stories you tell. And so I started that and I get a lot of requests for people like hear me speak and like, oh, I really like this. Where can I get more? And that's a good place. It's called An Epic Life, an Epic Life, and it's on you. And it's really small by YouTuber standards. I think I have 1,800 subscribers. Compared to my son who's got 30,000, and like, you're just getting started, pops.
Well,
But
what I like about your channel, there's a couple. It's smaller, so it's more intimate. You upload the videos and then you respond back. And so I remember when you responded back to me, because I seen you on the stage, you're talking, you're a published author, and I was like, Jeff responded back to me. He actually wrote back to me like, this is so cool. So even though it's a
yeah,
smaller channel, it's
well, I read the
great.
comments and I like, and part of the reason I didn't want to do like just a verbal type podcast, I'm kind of animated and when
Yeah.
I speak, and I feel like YouTube's a good place for that. And some of it is like I've been making recently, like some of when I travel, some vlogs on the places I go, which I think are interesting. I don't know if other people do, but a lot of it is dumb thing. Somebody made a comment and said, "This channel is basically dumb shit Jeff did and what he learned from it." And I go, "Yep, that's what this channel is." And it's like one of my more popular videos is how I ended up in a Greek prison, or the time I almost fell to my death in the Grand Canyon, the time I got my vehicle stolen in New York City in the dumbest way possible, and so I hopefully, but those are similar to the kind of speaking I do, which is telling stories, and there's some lessons in there. And feel free to like, subscribe, share with your friends, and I'm going to be doing more of those this year. I did a my last trip I was on was quite an adventure. I was speaking on the north side of Los Angeles on a Tuesday when everyone's phone went evacuate. There's a wildfire,
Ugh.
and so left there, checked into a hotel. My wife called me and she goes, "The fire is heading right toward you." And I checked out of the hotel burned down that night. I'm like, well, glad I got out. So I was running from the wildfires, and then speaking, and then hiking in the mountains, and so it's an epic life, if I say so myself. And the point of it, you'll see if you watch it, is that an epic life doesn't mean that you're any more special than anyone else, but if you're trying to help other people, if you're trying to make a difference with your life, that's what an epic life is. And Erica, you're doing a great job at that. Keep it up.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys. Thank you, Jeff, for hanging out with me for I don't a long time. It's been an hour and a half. Thank
Yeah,
you so much.
feel free to cut this down if you need to for your podcast.
No, we're gonna be good. We're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna wrap this one up, you guys. I appreciate you guys tuning in to the Scoop podcast. And until next time, bye.
Bye bye.